Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's TLC lesson. And I'm so excited. We have our member, Betsy Bergman, back again to share more of her Ayurvedic wisdom with us. We have in your members portal, we have Ayurveda 101, which she dives into a real nice, gentle introduction as to what that is and how we can use it, how it might appear in your life. And today we're going to dive in with daily practices to really settle into this time in our lives, this season that we're in. And I'm so excited because Betsy was giving us a little bit at one of our prior calls, kind of teaching us how this is yoga's sister science. And I personally have been diving into yoga, so I can't wait to meet its sister. So, with that, I will turn it
Mm.
over to Betsy from Be Well. Welcome,
Great.
Betsy.
Great. Thanks so much, Kathy. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. And so I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see that? Do you see? Okay. All right, great. So as Kathy said, I've talked about Ayurveda in different arenas, before, and there's a precursor to this class where I talk about the basics of Ayurveda. But this class, I'm still going to go into some of the basics just so that you have if this is new to you, you have the framework for what Ayurveda is. And just to tell you a quick little bit about me, got my certification through the Chopra Center for Ayurveda. I know Kathy through the Life Designer coaching program with Julie Riesler and also Kathy O'Neill. And prior to that, I was certified in 2020 um, with the Satori method for Qigong, which I currently still teach once a week as well. Okay. So why do I teach self-care? And just to back up, the name of my company, Simply Be Well, is because I love to keep things super simple. And so what I love about Ayurveda is that it is very simple self-care practices. And I also believe that you're never too young to start aging gracefully. And a lot of what I've learned is from observing my parents. My father, just as an example, lived to 103. And so I gain a lot of my perspective on how my father lived his life. And also, I have found over the years that for what the best way to learn something is to teach it. I think my Satori sensei said that, quoted that, and I've heard it a number of times too, and I think it's really true. So the other motivation that I have is that I want to make a contribution, and I think what better way to contribute to someone's well-being is through lifestyle. And the good news is that the choices that we make in our lifestyle contribute immensely to our health outcomes. So again, the good news is that we have the power to create the kind of life that we love. So the goal of daily routines is to just gain greater productivity in your day, creating comfort and joy using these Ayurvedic principles. And really, it's about, where does productivity come from? It comes from just getting more energy, nourishing yourself so that you have more energy. And Ayurveda comes from India. It's 5,000 years old, and it uses the elements of nature to balance our own nature. And so we use the elements of air, space, fire, water, and earth, and we apply those elements in nature to our own self, our own unique nature, which is what we call in Ayurveda your dosha. So the more that we tailor these practices to our unique nature, the more it becomes less of a science and more of an art. And so, what we'll learn today is we're going to talk about physical, mental, and spiritual self care practices. And we're going to align the natural rhythms of the day, in other words, the circadian rhythm, to our own body's natural processes. So, the circadian rhythm follows the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. So, it's a 24-hour cycle. And then we'll also look at how the seasons change and how the not only during the day has a dosha, just like ourselves, we have a dosha, or in other words, a unique nature from the elements of nature, but also the seasons do as well. So, just as a quick recap, these are the three doshas, and they have these characteristics that are taken from the elements of nature. So, for example, vata, uh, when you combine space and air, the elements are cold and dry, but the purpose or the function is mobile. It's movement. Whereas pitta is fire and water. And what happens when you put fire and water together? You have steam. So it's transformative. When you use fire and apply it to, let's say, you're cooking something, it transforms it. And kapha, the elements are from water and earth. So again, what happens when you put water and earth together? You get mud. It's formative. It creates substance. I also like to think of Mother Nature. And what is Mother Nature? It's protective. It's nurturing, um, and it's also cold and wet. So we're going to be using cold, wet, hot, cold, wet, dry, those characteristics quite a bit. Okay. So as I mentioned, the circadian rhythm utilizes the three doshas throughout the day, and then it repeats itself. So for AM and PM. So if we start at Vata at 2 a.m., this is when we're sleeping, we have this emotional detox. And so you'll may find that yourself may wake up between the hours of 2 and 6 often, maybe a little, unfortunately, a little more towards 2 a.m. It's because your emotions are very active at that point. That's where you're dreaming a lot. So it may actually, wake you up. And as we get closer to sunrise to 6 a.m., that's a great time to meditate. So, as another way to think of the Ayurvedic principles is kind of like a dial. It's like easing into it. It's going from, you're not going from 0 to 60, you're going from slow and you're gradually turning up the dial. So as we go into kapha at 6 a.m., the characteristics are more slow. So we want to ease, into the day, gradually picking up pace. And this is a great time to exercise. And again, coming in slow and then increasing the intensity. And then pitta. So pitta, if you remember, is fire. So if you think of your metabolism or when the sun is at its highest, between 10 and 2 is the best time for you to digest food. So not that you're not eating any other time of the day, but you're eating those things that are the hardest to digest, and you're eating a little lighter before that and a little lighter after that. And it's also the time, another characteristic of Pitta is very driven, analytical. So this is a good time to also do very focused work. And then as we go into the evening hours, PM, we repeat the doshas. So vata is again going to be more active. So from, let's say, early afternoon to late afternoon, this is a great time to use your creative energy. And then as you get more towards the later afternoon, taking a rest again, do something more meditative. So it's also this like ebb and flow. If you notice, it's ebbing and flowing throughout the day, And there's a book that I had read, and I can't remember the author, but I think the name of the book was called The Slight Edge. And he also talks about athletes a lot, uses a lot of that analogy, and how the best way to create stamina is to, have active periods and rest periods. And that follows an Ayurvedic principle exactly. And so then as we again go into kapha time in the evening, it's a slow down time. We're eating a little lighter. We're unplugging, before we go to bed. We're turning down the lights. The sun is going down. We're just being, again, dialing it down a bit. And ideally, um, you want to go to bed be asleep around 10 p.m. All hours of sleep is not equal. So during those hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is when your body is doing a physical detox. And this is where you get your really deep sleep. So if you're, kind of a night owl and you're on that kind of schedule where you're like going to bed at midnight and getting up at 8, even though you are getting 8 hours of sleep, it's not the same quality of sleep. And I hear that every time I hear somebody, a doctor, talk about sleep, I hear the same thing. It's not just an Ayurvedic principle. So here's an idea of how to structure your day. We can get your input on this also. So have you ever woken up without an alarm clock? Do you ever do that? Yeah. And you can unmute yourselves. Feel free
Yeah.
to chime in.
I never use an alarm clock.
I
Isn't
don't
that a
either.
great way to wake up?
Yeah.
I just
It's so
automatically wake
refreshing.
up pretty early.
Mm,
Yeah. I mean, it's just like again, like easing into the day without being jarred into
yeah. I mean, if I have to get to like the airport,
it.
I'll set my alarm, but day to day, I
Yeah.
never. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful way to wake up.
Mm,
And ideally before 6 a.m. is so like right around just before sunrise is ideal because otherwise, like then your body goes into this it almost instead of the reverse of second wind, it almost goes into more of a into that kapha time. It wants to go into rest mode again. So it's really I feel more energized when I wake up around that time frame. Whereas if I sleep later, I'm definitely more groggy. So, the next thing is to, go to the bathroom. Have either of you heard of tongue scraping or oil pulling? Do either of you do that?
the tongue scraping, yes, but the oil pulling, no.
Okay. So I'm going to throw out some things, and these aren't things, I don't necessarily do all of these things, but it's like the buffet, take what you like and leave the rest. I love a tongue scraping in the morning, and I used to do it with an actual um, stainless steel tool that's a tongue scraper, but I'm finding that I like a just regular teaspoon that you have in your kitchen drawer. I like that a lot better. It seems to collect more. And what this is, it's a film that you wake up with, and if when you scrape it, it removes some toxins that have collected in your mouth overnight. So instead of taking a drink of water and swallowing all of that toxin back, you just scrape off that film and throw it down the drain. And then oil pulling, this is also the same purpose. It's you take, let's say, a coconut oil or even an olive oil, and you swish it around in your mouth. And some people do this for like up to 20 minutes. It's supposed to clean your the bacteria out of your mouth, and you spit it out again, like in the garbage. And it's collecting the bacteria and toxins in your mouth, and it's almost like almost like a magnet. It's like collecting it out and then you spit it out. Um, I, for myself, I don't enjoy that so much. It's supposed to be great for your teeth as well as your gums and your whole, you know, um, mouth, dental health, but it's not something that I was kind of gagging on, to be honest. So have
Yeah,
you
I don't
either
see
of you mind?
myself doing that. This
Have
tongue
you either?
scraping,
Yeah.
yes. The oil pulling, not so much.
I
Yeah.
think I read about it when doing the tongue scraping and noticing the benefits of that and then thinking that's such a cool idea. And then the more I researched it, and I probably over researched it because it was like, don't spit it down the drain because it's gonna clog your drain. And then I'm like, then I gotta spit in the trash and then you can't like, so I got
Yeah.
all up in my head and I was like, I'll just not do that.
Yeah. Again, to each your own. Some people love it, but I, my whole philosophy for myself is I need to keep it simple in order to do it. So, yeah. Oh, here's another one. And again, I'm throwing it out there. I have my own way of doing this, which is not textbook, but I'll throw it out. A lot of people use a neti pot and swear by it, that it just makes them feel clear-headed and it's amazing. I never got the hang of it. So I just like to splash water um, in my face and blow my nose in the morning, and that's how I do it. I don't use a neti pot. How about you guys? Anybody use a neti pot?
I use it when my allergies are really bad or when
Hmm.
I'm like really congested. I don't use it with frequency, but it does really help
Mm,
when I use it. Yeah.
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
same.
Uh, Again, when it whatever works for when it works. So, and then, drinking water. Personally, I like room temperature water to start with, and put my lemon in a little bit later in the morning. It's just how I tolerate citrus in the morning. But other people, again, according to your dosha, you may not tolerate, lemon so well. Maybe lime is easier on your stomach. Again, it's all about experimenting and finding everyone's different. That's the whole principle behind Ayurveda is that no one size fits all. So, try, what you like, but it's a great, the concept is a great way to detox to start your morning. And then again, just easing into your morning with some type of um, breath work, which is pranayama, a meditation, maybe you journal. Something that I've been doing more recently is brain retraining and nervous system regulation. So that could include, actually, that does include breath work quite a bit, but could also be something like eye yoga, or it could be um, some type of somatic movement that helps to regulate your nervous system. And journaling is also a great way to do some brain retraining. And then again, moving into to exercises in the morning, starting out with uh, flexible exercises, maybe some yoga, stretching, just mindful, slow movements, qigong. I'm a big fan of, as you know, and then moving into more intense workouts. And then for showering, I have this whole ritual too, and it doesn't take as long as you might think. But I like to start out with a dry breath brush. Not only does it stimulate your skin, but I also use it um, as like a metaphoric exercise. I love to put like a mindfulness exercise with a physical exercise. So I like to actually think like I'm brushing off things that, like, let's say worry. So I'm brushing it right off my shoulder, you know, or maybe I have a little pain in my knee. So I'm brushing that pain right off, right out of my knee. And Abhyanga is an oil massage. So I personally use castor oil. I've heard amazing things about using castor oil. So I don't put it on so thick that it's dripping, but I just rub it into my hands and then massage it into my skin from top to bottom. And it's just a nice way to not only moisturize your skin and provide some healing, physical healing for your skin and your cells even underneath, but again, it's a symbolic way to give yourself some love. So then I get into
Betsy, is that also have a detoxifying element to it?
I would call it for what I am aware of, I'm using it as like a healing.
Uh-huh.
So let's say I've got again, I refer to this pain in my knee or anywhere, throughout my body, especially my feet. I use it, and it's very soothing. It's supposed to be great for arthritis, for inflammation. So you could, I
Mm,
guess, think of it as uh, detoxing, but I like to think of it as healing.
mhm.
But that could be part of it. So I guess maybe the difference, Kathy, detox is taking out, whereas healing is maybe putting in. So I
Yeah, I
feel.
think some of it for me is like, oh, I'm getting rid of dry skin, or
Hmm.
I'm getting rid of like a layer of something that's not of cells that are not useful anymore.
Yep,
And so that's kind of what I'm thinking, but that's healing.
yep, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yep. So I'm in the shower. I do, whatever I need to do in the shower. And then before I get out, I also do like another very similar to dry brushing, but I'm squeegeeing. So I'm like getting the excess water off of me. And again, can be metaphoric or symbolic to just like wiping away whatever doesn't serve me.
So when you
And
say
again, Kathy,
squeegee, you're using your hand?
my hands. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm not using the
The,
plastic
the
thing.
shower door cleaner, that's
But not, yeah, no. With like all that ick on it, no.
talk about like detoxing, right?
Yeah, yeah. So then, after I get dressed, I'm uh, having breakfast, and then you'll find that this is going to repeat with all of the meals, resting just for a few minutes after eating, and then walking, like just for a few minutes to help to digest. And I'm finding, even though I don't necessarily have the energy at night, I'm finding if I move at night after dinner, it's so helpful. I just feel so much better. And you feel like you don't want to do it, but then once you get up and move around, miraculously you have more energy. I don't know how that happens, but it does. And then later in the morning, let's say by this time, for me, it's between 9 and 10 o'clock. This is where, now I'm ready to sit down and I'm taking care of like all of my physical self care and my mental self care and some spiritual self care. Now I'm really ready to sit down and focus on work. And I'm highly productive when I do it this time of the morning. Guys have any comments on that for your own experience? Okay,
I
moving
think,
on to
oh,
after. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say what I've been toying with lately is doing like my movement near the 9 o'clock hour or near the 11 o'clock hour. And like, so just seeing when I do it at 9, my mornings feel a little rushed, but then I benefit after because I feel like I'm ready for the day. But then when I plan it for like the 11 o'clock hour, I can be a little more slower in the mornings and maybe do a little work. And that, so it's like I'm just playing with, but I guess it does fall in that time
That
frame.
time frame. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just, experimenting with, do feel more focused before or after exercising? I'd be curious to
Mm,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
So now we're up to lunch. And as we talked about earlier, when the sun is at its highest, this is the best time to have your largest meal, you know, this is a little difficult concept because in our culture, if people even eat lunch, it's definitely it's usually not the largest meal. Our largest meal in our culture is usually dinner, so it's definitely a cultural shift. I think, to try and make lunch your largest meal. And I think one of the challenges with this is that if for most people, if they're working, they're not taking the time to really cook, or take the time, even if it's a salad, to chop or cook to make this a big meal. So there's, I guess, ways that we can think about making this more efficient. And one of the things that I like to have a salad every day for lunch. And so often what I'll do is I'll take a lot of, even though it's chopping, I'll take whatever leftovers we had from dinner and I'll throw that into the salad, and that saves, some time as well. Any thoughts, recommendations? Okay. And then again, after every meal, the sitting for a few minutes and then walking right after to help. And then moving into the early afternoon, early to mid afternoon. This is, and I do love this. This is like when I want to meet with people, as we're doing now, or doing something, creative, or just getting out and doing errands. But like I want to move, in the afternoon. I kind of set aside the morning, almost the whole morning, a good part of the morning anyway, to do some self care. So, like now I'm out, I'm ready to be of service to other people in the afternoon. And uh, then, going towards the end of the afternoon, again, that ebb and flow. So, working in some downtime, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's breath work, maybe it's journaling, maybe it's reading. Just like take with a cup of tea. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do. So just slowing down.
Betsy, I find that I don't really want to do meetings after like 3 or 4 o'clock for me.
Yeah.
And do you think like kind of switching it up a little, like you're describing, would change that?
So when do you like to do your meetings in the morning? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or early afternoon.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
tends to be more of my sweet spot. And
Yeah. Well,
um,
I do like
yeah,
to be done with, I would say, meetings. So let's say I'm having meetings between 1 and 4. I do want to be done by 4 because I do want to take a rest, or even 3, take a rest around 3 or 4 o'clock, and then start preparing, for dinner. So I totally get what you're saying. Late afternoon is a nice time to wind down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're starting your meetings, earlier, you know, I do, I mean, this is all flexible, you know what I mean? These are just like guidelines to, it's not like you're looking at your watch and you're saying, oh, it's 2 o'clock. I need to switch gears. It's just kind of a framework to,
Yeah.
and the different times of year, the sun is going to rise and fall differently. So you're going to feel different in the summer than you are in the winter.
Yeah, I was just more, it was like best time for active and creative work, you know. And I'm wondering why that time frame is best for that.
Well, I would say because the characteristics of vata, that's a characteristic of vata, and vata
Okay.
is, typically between 2 and 6 in the afternoon. So it's
Mm,
it could be, maybe, working alone, not necessarily in a meeting. Maybe it's just, where you're, um, especially later in the afternoon, maybe you're just, sitting by yourself, maybe not even writing anything down. You're just, letting your mind, be
mm,
still and be, open to creative ideas.
mm. That makes sense.
You know. Um, okay, so evening. Around, again, 6 o'clock, starting to wind down, eating a light dinner, preferably right, not before going to bed, doing the same, sitting. And then again, moving. And, it may not be a walk outside, but even just moving around your house, can be helpful. And the other big thing, and this was huge for me years ago when I was working in real estate, to stop negotiating at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And it made a big difference with how well I was able to sleep. And it's been well documented to unplug from electronics, right, from right before you go to bed. And, the type of thing that you're watching on TV can make a difference. So all of those things can affect how well you sleep and if you can even get to sleep. And then we talked about this before, trying to get to bed by 10 roughly.
That's so hard. It
Mhm.
happened to me last night. Dave and I are watching this show, and it was like rarely am I like, oh my God, one more episode. And it was like just so intense. And then we were done by 10:30, and I could not fall asleep till almost 2 o'clock. And I was reading
Oh,
my
wow.
yeah. And then I even was like, I don't sleep with my phone near my bed, but I sleep with my Kindle. And I realized last night that my Kindle was connected to the Wi-Fi. And so it's just probably like sleeping with your phone right near you, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
put it on
yeah.
airplane mode. Anyways, yeah, that
That's a
right
good
now, what you're
point.
talking about hit home. That last night I was like 2 o'clock. I was entering into Pitta, right? No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vata,
Yeah.
vata for emotional detox. You did it while you were awake.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, you know what? You know, life doesn't, always happen, on a schedule. These daily routines, I believe, are, if this is your basis for most days during the week, it gives you more resilience when, things go off the rails. For myself, last night were out at my daughter's future in-laws and celebrating the holiday. And it's 2 hours away, and we didn't start driving home until 10 o'clock at night, didn't get home till almost midnight. So that's like way out of whack from my normal. But, I just gave myself grace in the morning and, did my things, but, it was late, a couple hours later than normal. And you just, I believe that if you set up the foundation, you have that resilience to bounce back quicker.
I love that.
So, yeah,
That's a great takeaway, right? This is like what you were describing to Kathy. This is a framework, and it's kind of like what we talk about with mindset and mindfulness, right? We're going to aim for 80/20, or maybe even 70/30, and some days 90/10. But it's that
yeah,
allowing that practice so that we can fall back easy on the times that we need it, really, right?
right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yes. Um, and then another thing that again, to that point, I don't do this every night, but I try and do it at least a couple of times a week, is to take a warm Epsom salt bath. And particularly, for muscles, not only for sleep, but for muscles, it's really beneficial. Um, the other thing, actually, I don't even have it on here because I mean, I wouldn't, suggest necessarily that everyone do it, but I'll just like throw in there that something I've been doing for the last month is an infrared sauna. And you can get these like solo bags, I'll call them. They look like a Jiffy Pop, and you zip it up, and that is wonderful for warming up your muscles and detoxing and a whole array of benefits. But uh, yeah, I don't even have that in here, but FYI. This is kind of obvious, but avoiding, caffeine late in the day and even alcohol. I find that while it might put you right to sleep, it can really disrupt your sleep pattern later in the night. And so, And then herbal teas can be really soothing that time of day as well. I love to read before going to bed, but again, like nothing like too violent. Something, uplifting is nice to do right before bed.
I
And
can't
then,
read my murder mystery before I go to sleep.
well, if you enjoy it and it lifts you up, I like to call those like Agatha Christie type murders. I call them murder light.
Yeah. That's probably what I read.
I we enjoy a good murder light around here. Um, but then, here's another thing, personal preference. Personally, I like to journal in the morning. It sets me up for the day, but a lot of people love to journal at night because it just like helps to get those thoughts out of your head so that they're not swirling around in you overnight. So, again, personal preference. And then, once you're in bed, you can also, and again, I don't always remember to do this, but it really is so powerful to set an intention right before you fall asleep is incredibly powerful. And that's how I started to be able to wake up without an alarm clock. I set an intention to wake up at a certain time, and I just did. And so think about like how powerful other things could be that you set an intention for to, have for your day, for your day. Um, I I'm so usually so tired at night I don't remember to do it, but it's really a habit that I would love to get down more. Okay, and then just seasonal, things. They also have characteristics. So Vata being cold is late fall through winter. Kapha is late winter through spring. Wet, kind of that muddy season, and then cold and muddy. And then Pitta is summer, so it's hot, summer into fall. So to balance the effects of winter, and again with Ayurveda, it's very intuitive. It's common sense. It's you're balancing with opposites. So if the season is cold, you're balancing with warm. So you're balancing with warm food and drink. You're favoring the heavier, more moisturizing foods. You're reducing the drying foods and you're hydrating more, you're reducing dry or raw foods, and you're staying warm. And because Vata, if you remember, Vata's characteristic is space and air, by balancing with the opposite, grounding practices would be beneficial during this season. So, like yoga, grounding yoga practices is good. And then kapha, where it's cold and wet, we want to balance that with a lighter diet. Again, still favoring warm foods, but instead of heavier, like a heavier stew, a lighter stew. Eating more pungent, spicy, drying tastes because it's a wet season, and reducing the sweet, sour, and salty tastes, bringing in more invigorating exercise because kapha's characteristic is slow. Think of like, stuck in the mud. So inviting in more invigorating exercises. It's a great time during any change of season to cleanse or detox, dressing to stay warm. And then pitta in the hotter weather, we're favoring cooler foods and drinks, favoring drying, more bitter foods, and reducing sour, salty, and pungent because remember, pitta is fire, so we don't want to add a lot more spice. And spicy food, adding fire to fire creates the imbalance. And then obviously avoid overheating when exercising. So you don't want to work out in 12 noon during the summer. And then aromas like mint and sandalwood can be very soothing. So to simplify, your diet during these times of transformation, occasional fasting can be useful, and just nourishing yourself through all the senses. So, for example, um, if if you wanted to tap into the element of space, stargazing, ideally at dawn or dusk, could be beneficial. Using fire, the element of fire would be the light of the sun to warm you. Um, Water, walking along bodies of nature. Earth, walking barefoot on the natural earth, grounding. And then air would be pranayama exercises like breath work. And then we want to incorporate all of these movements throughout the day, a balance of flexibility, strength, and cardio. And depending on the day, you might emphasize more of one over the other. So for vata balancing, remember vata is very fast paced, so you want to slow it down with the opposite. So qigong, yoga, slow walks, light bicycling would be soothing. For kapha, we need to invigorate because kapha needs stimulation. So running, cardio, dance, more active yoga. And then pitta is hot, so we want it to be medium pace, walking or jogging. Cooling would be swimming, biking, even with the breeze, in your face. Winter sports, anything outdoors if it's not too hot.
Hey, Betsy,
Yeah.
the picture with Qigong was you. Is that you swimming too?
It is not.
It is not. Okay.
No, if you saw me swimming, it would be in the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't have a pool. So, in summary, optimal daily routines are to leverage your day, and it's to stay in harmony with the changing of seasons, the time of day, and as you begin to practice self-care, to notice how these daily routines will help you cultivate a lifestyle to support nourishing your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. So I really believe that it's those three things need to be balanced as well. You can't just focus on the physical because there's so much underlying mental and spiritual nourishing that needs to be cultivated in order to, have a really, you know, optimizing a whole uh, feeling of wellness. And that's it. Any other questions or comments?
That's awesome. Thank you, Betsy. I was wondering, like, so for the circadian rhythm, and it's broken up into 3 4 hour periods that repeat, right?
Yep.
If like to kind of, and I know it's like you said, very intuitive, and like, would you be able to like to help me kind of remember the vibe? Like, do you like, I don't know. Like, so would there be like a way to remember like the vibe of kapha from 6 a.m.? Like,
Well, the three doshas have the same characteristics. So kapha, if you think of, let's go back to kapha is um, when you put water and earth together, it's mud, so it's slow, right?
okay.
So and it's cold and wet. So you want to use the opposite to balance it.
Okay.
That
So
makes sense.
from like, so let's say, so kapha was the 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And so if it is like mud, I want to start using the opposite during that time.
Yep.
And so like is the opposite of mud dirt or like like
So I'm thinking of it's slow. So
I
it's
want to
slow.
start
So
like
it's like
moving into my day.
you're easing into your day. You're starting out slow. Kapha characteristic is slow. So you want to balance with adding more activity into it.
So slowly get moving. Like I'm trying to
Hmm.
like I'm taking notes and like I need like I want like a little quick little like so 6 to 10 a.m. get moving
Yep,
slowly.
yep,
Okay.
yeah,
And
yep.
then 10
And
to 2.
tend to think of pitta is fire, it's hot. It's also think of your internal furnace, your metabolism.
Okay.
So this is, a good time to again focus on eating, that start eating, higher calorie items, things that are harder to digest. This is a good time, to do that between 10 and 2.
Okay.
Um, and then it's also Pitta, a characteristic is very driven and analytical. So this is also a good time to start to do some work, some focused work.
Okay. And then you slow down with Vata.
So Vata
Oh no,
is
you
the
get
characteristic
creative.
of Vata is mobile.
Okay.
So and again, it's kind of like that dial. So you're ramping up and then you're slowing down.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
And Vata is a characteristic of Vata is very creative.
Yeah.
It's on the go. It's very not regulated. Do you know what
Mm,
I mean? It's
yeah.
not doesn't want to be held to a routine so much. So maybe a way to think of Vata in this time period, 2 to 6, and this is during the day. This is PM, not AM. During this time of day could be very spontaneous.
Mm,
So it could be maybe different every day.
yeah.
Whereas Pitta likes like structure.
Yeah. So I
So
wonder just to sort of drive home the doshas and using them during this circadian rhythm. So I'm thinking like people usually have like their personal life and then their business, their work-life balance. So what if we were to look at this lens, look through it the lens of work? So how would you and Ayurveda guide me to run my business during this 12-hour period, right? Like
yeah,
it's just suggestions, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah.
And again, the other thing to take into consideration is what is your dosha? So how does that play into the time of day? So take that into consideration as well.
Okay.
So just as a very basic example, are you highly do you like structure or do you like more spontaneity?
Oh God. Um,
Maybe it's a little both. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
everybody's different. But
I
just
would
as
say I like definitely a little of both, but probably a little more fluid than not.
okay,
Don't go telling me what to do, Betsy. That's what I don't
yeah,
like.
yeah. So, how would it feel?
I see Kathy laughing. How would it feel? Okay.
How would it feel to you were talking earlier about, sometimes you're playing with when you exercise. Is it, 9 o'clock or is it 11 o'clock? Right? And so are you more inclined to have more focus to do focus type work before or after you work out? And, so I would say that could fall, anywhere in this pitta time frame.
Yeah.
But, you have to figure out by trial and error,
Mm,
is it, are you more productive before you work out or after you work out?
yeah. I
And
would.
it's
Oh,
also, what is the harder thing for you to do? And I would say challenge you to maybe do the one that's harder for you to do first so it's out of the way.
okay. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
as you were talking, something came to me and is I don't know if it's gimmicky or not, but as an Ayurvedic practitioner, what is like the validity or how can somebody say so okay, I'm not making sense, but so I read somewhere that if you can touch like to figure out what your own personal dosha
Oh,
is, like are you
uh-huh.
small boned, medium, or bigger
Yeah,
boned, and
right.
something about wrapping your wrist with your fingers, is
So
that fake?
I actually haven't heard of that. What people will do, I mean, I think that there is validity in that, but I haven't necessarily heard of like, wrapping your finger. I don't know what that would tell you, but like a bigger boned person is going to lean more towards a kapha physical constitution,
Okay.
whereas I think of a vata physical constitution would be, I think of tall, willowy type of build. Um, Pitta, I think of red hair, freckles, um, that kind of, and there's also um, people will take a pulse to see, like what your dosha is. Um, there's telltale signs on your tongue to see, like what your dosha is. But the other thing to keep in mind is that um, we look at not only your physical constitution, but also how your mental state, like how does your mind feel? So your body could be doing one thing. So, for example, my body could be very um, a little bit slower inclined, more kapha inclined, whereas my mind can be very vata, very mobile, very dysregulated. It could be anxious when imbalanced. I think we live in a very vata culture.
Hmm.
um, it could, or another example would be, I could be feeling emotionally very pitta, angry when I'm in imbalance, or when I'm in balance, feeling pitta, I could be like very focused, very driven, just able to like get work done.
Hmm. Yeah. And I feel like I remember you telling us in Ayurveda 101, which people can rewatch in the members portal, that you're not just one. You're like it's almost like you could be like a little bit of something else.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
yes. So it's all ratios, kind of like almost like instead of this being a clock, let's
okay.
say it were a pie. All of this, is you and your ratios, your piece of the pie of say pitta could be, much smaller. You
Mm.
could have way more kapha or way more vata. So it's all ratios. We all have some of these characteristics. We're all, pieces of the pie,
Hmm.
but it's just a matter of what ratios we all have, and um, and that can change based on your choices and your circumstances. So you could be feeling, you could have a pitch imbalance and be feeling like you have, let's say, heartburn, right? So you could be feeling like a pitch imbalance one day, and the next day you can be perfectly balanced.
Mm. And so would it
It's
be, oh, go ahead.
just paying attention to how you feel and then balancing.
That's what I was going to ask was would the intention or the goal be to be like this pie here where you're sort of fluid through all of them, or is it somebody's natural constitution is a little heavier in one or the other?
Yeah, yes, yes, the latter.
Okay.
So, for example, I could be way more comfortable and happy to be sitting home with a book, whereas someone else needs to be, and this would be, leaning more towards Vata, being out and being social.
Mm, hmm. Okay.
So, yeah, There's no, it's not like we're trying to be, you know, an even amount of each. We have natural tendencies to lean, towards, one dosha or another.
That's awesome. And if somebody watching wants to learn more or learn more about their personal dosha, is that something that you would help somebody with, or how would they, what would you
Yeah.
want to do?
Yep. They could kind of reach out to me directly, and it could either look like a conversation, or it could, I have a little short quiz that you can fill out, and that can help you by answering these questions. It can help to um, determine what your tendencies are.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, hopefully for you or anyone listening, it's just taking some of these concepts into consideration to, instead of fighting, against what might be a natural tendency, either in yourself or in nature, or the circadian rhythm or the season, but to, instead of, having the resistance, just to allow more ebb and flow, and, um, therefore creating and having more energy.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up, any final guidance or words of wisdom? Or Kathy, did you have any questions?
No, I mean, Betsy and I have spoken about Ayurvedic, you know, methodologies or however you call it. And it's come up a lot. I just was talking to someone about it today, and it's that looking at your full body experience. And so it's not just, it's about what you put in your body. It's about how you sleep. It's about, how you take care of your emotional well-being. It's like I feel like every day I'm learning more and more about how they all connect,
Hmm.
because they do, you know. And so it's really interesting to hear about this, Betsy, because it's just like it just reminds me. It's a really great reminder for me that it all connects, and that, to be in balance, there's a there is a simple way to do it, and you just have to kind of find that simple way for yourself,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And I guess, the bottom line takeaway for anyone to have is just, listening to what you need, and, asking yourself, what you need in this moment.
Mm, definitely,
Well, thank
right?
you for
Yeah,
giving me this opportunity to share the information.
of course. And I look forward to the third installment of Betsy teaching us about Ayurveda. What's next, right? I mean,
Oh.
I could even see it learning how to, because I do think that I love how you touched on the seasonal aspect, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
of the rhythm and knowing, what your dosha, knowing how you can move through each season s- more smoothly in balance, right? With yourself and
Yeah.
not pushing it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that
Yes.
when people learn what works for them, there's a sense of freedom in that, Like it's
Mhm.
not going to work for me to push at this time of day because it's just not in my constitution.
Right. Well, it's like riding the wave, you know, and and
Yeah.
and and instead of resisting, against it, it's riding that wave.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The more we know about ourselves and how we move through the world and how we can best move through the world, it is like that, riding the wave. It's not, it's almost like that analogy of you're in the rip tide, right? And you don't fight it. You just the easiest way out is to
Yeah.
surrender and
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just be. Mm.
Very
Well,
true.
thank you so much. And
You're
in
welcome.
the show notes, we'll have ways for you to get in touch with Betsy. At the beginning of the slide, I did notice she had her email and her phone number, so you can always just start this back up and it's there, or in the show notes, we'll have ways to get in touch with Betsy. All right,
Great.
everybody, we'll see you soon.